Hi, my name's Phil. I like talking about politics, and in this video, I'd like to discuss the major political events coming up in 2024 as I predict 2019 levels of craziness. Consider it a calendar of conservative calamities to come. But first, if you'd like to be notified of daily news and politics, please subscribe to the channel. So Happy New Year to all. And this isn't so much a set of predictions for 2024 because basically we know they're going to happen. And predictions are a mug's game. This is about how I see things linking in with each other. You know, where something isn't known, it's what the options are. So January, first of all, January is going to be quite interesting. Few things to watch out for. The first is I saw a suggestion that Reform UK are planning a major announcement for this month. I think quite early this month. Might be a few days away. Now, the speculation would, of course, be that they'll be revealing Nigel Farage as their latest star signing after getting Ben Habib and Anne Widdecombe back last month, but we shall have to see. It would certainly set the cat amongst the pigeons in the Tory party, especially if they make the announcement ahead of the crucial third reading of Rishi Sunak's Rwanda safety bill. Indeed, if Nigel Farage is planning on rejoining Reform UK to help them at the election, not necessarily as a candidate, maybe like last time, just as like a leader, then they would do well to announce it ahead of that Rwanda safety bill third reading. Which brings me to the second major event of January. Sunak is trying to get this bill through Parliament. At the second reading, the reported rebellion just evaporated. There are two possibilities for that. Either most MPs on the far right are just attempting to amend the bill to their satisfaction and are prepared to still vote it down at the third reading if they don't like it, in which case Sunak is in trouble. Or they intend to let it pass through the Commons even if they're not entirely happy. If they do let it pass, it could be either they just can't unite behind anyone to replace Sunak, in which case there's no point in trying to bring him down. They only harm themselves. Or it might be that they are persuaded that they can use the bill as a trap for Labour, attack unelected Labour peers in the Lords for holding up or blocking the bill, then force Sunak to make rubbing out human rights a major policy platform for the general election. Finally, for January, there'll be by-election news. Sunak will have to move the writ for the Wellingborough by-election now that Peter Bone has been recalled. He's got a certain amount of leeway over that one. The other thing as well is Standards Committee will hear Scott Benton's appeal for his own suspension. He'll fail, of course. He's only doing it to buy an extra month or two of MP's salary. Once his appeal fails, the recall petition will be issued for his constituency, Blackpool South. I don't expect him to resign. So then into February. Now, exactly what the events of February are going to be like politically depends on how January pans out. We don't know exactly when the Wellingborough by-election will be, but Sunak is likely to want it as quickly as possible, just like the by-elections for last year, so that it stops Labour having too much time to campaign. If he's going to lose it, he really doesn't want to lose it badly, and he'd prefer not to lose it at all, right? So we can expect it to be in February. The by-election will be interesting for a couple of reasons. The first is that Isaac Levidow, who's the Tory party's professional election strategist, is now taking personal charge of Conservative campaign headquarters as of basically now. That means that the by-election campaign should be organised more professionally than the by-elections we had last year. We might expect to see the Tories trialling some of their intended tactics for the general election. Secondly, it will be another opportunity to highlight Sunak's failure to turn things around for the Tories, because unless there's a spectacular local issue, I don't see Labour failing to win this one. Another interesting feature for February will be the implementation of phase one of the post-Brexit standards controls. They come in at the end of this month, but we'll see the impact next month. Medium and high-risk products will need extra documentation, such as health certificates, but there won't be any checks until the spring. But in February, we should start to see how the process is likely to impact us once those checks do take place. Note that we're not applying full standards controls. The government completely abandoned the notion of fully protecting our borders. But even these weaker controls are still likely to cause significant disruption to some food supplies. Finally, February should be the month when we find out whether the economy grew in Q4 of 2023. If it didn't, then we are in recession and Sunak's election plans get a bit more complicated. If we end up with some growth or zero growth, then he dodges the bullet of technical recession and can proceed as expected. Then into March, Scott Benson, as I say, is likely to fail his appeal and a recall petition issued. I would imagine that recall petition will be completed in March sometime. Because Blackpool South should be an easy take for Labour, I think it's fair to say the recall petition will pass without any problems. Then Scott Benson is no longer an MP. However, the recall petition will probably be completed so close to the local election date that I imagine the by-election will be held on the same day, May the 2nd. Speaking of May the 2nd, the really big news for March will be the will he, won't he for the general election. If Rishi Sunak is going to call the election for May the 2nd, he needs to announce it before the end of March. If Sunak hasn't called the election by March 28th, I think it is, then it's going to be an autumn election. Like, in theory, he could still call it for later in the spring or even summer. That's possible. But that would be an odd move. Like, why go through the embarrassment of another humiliating set of local and mayoral election results only to hold the general election a few weeks later? Why would you do that? You make it harder for yourself. No, if he doesn't call the election for May the 2nd, we're going long. In terms of what would swing the decision, I've said that Sunak's trying to use the national insurance cuts and Rwanda bill as a way of getting the polling figures to swing in his favour. If he feels the plan has worked, he will call the election for May. If the polling remains in wipeout territory for the Tories, then they may delay in panic, if nothing else. Things that could cause the polls to remain where they are, there's lots of them, could include, first, if we are in recession. Second, people realising that the higher energy bills have wiped out the benefit of their national insurance cuts. Third, people reading in the news that the income tax is going up in real terms anyway, so the overall rate of tax is still going to be higher despite the January cuts. Fourth, more stories of Tory sleaze emerging. Fifth, the far right undermining Sunak's efforts. Sixth, the new standards controls causing noticeable problems with food supplies, although they have timed things to try and avoid that before the election. After March, we're into sort of branches of time, really. It's like, could be this, could be that. If the election is not called for May the 2nd, then the Tories are going to have a third consecutive year of humiliating local and mayoral election results. The headline contest this year will be the Mayor of London contest. Although the Tories have changed the voting system to favour their candidate, it's not going to be enough. Susan Hall is abject. London is generally a Labour city anyway, and Labour are also in the ascendancy nationally. But results elsewhere will be bruising for the Tories as well. The good news for Sunak is that if he is going long and the rebels in the party haven't already made their move by that point, it's probably too late for them to do it in May. So although the usual suspects will attempt to undermine Sunak with the May results, say, oh, if only Boris was here, it won't do any Tory MPs any good to rock the boat at this point. The second phase of standards controls will be implemented in April. This could cause significant disruption. People will also see the impact of real terms income tax increases in the spring, wiping out much of the benefit of that early national insurance cut, which, as I say, is why I think they really are aiming for May. Over summer, we may see Channel Crossings numbers actually go up. It'll be down to pure luck. Depending on what happens with the Rwanda bill, the Tories will probably try and blame Labour for that, but the public know that the Tories are the ones in power. If the election is not May the 2nd, then you think, well, when will it be? The latest speculation is November the 14th, 9 days after the US presidential election. It's not clear to me why they think that this might help the Tories. There's a suggestion that they would be betting the farm on a Trump win. How would that help? Trump's not popular in the UK, even amongst key Conservative voters. I can see how they might, in theory, go, oh, but a Conservative government is going to work more constructively with the Republican government. But Trump's really unpopular. And he will be properly deranged during the presidential contest itself. I can imagine he may have strategists who say, look, Orange one, can you dial it down? Because if you go fully off the deep end, then you're going to get more people going out to vote for Biden. But he's unhinged. And I think the full loony is going to come out during the presidential contest. I don't think the Tories tying themselves to his fortunes is going to work out for them. That being said, I have not seen anyone write down an explanation as to how they think a Donald Trump winning the elections could favour the Tories. Maybe there's some cunning plan. I'm just not seeing it, and I haven't seen anyone else say it. So my view remains election in May, unless the polls really don't shift. Granted, I don't know how much the polls do have to shift in order for Sunak to call it, but autumn would be a really bad time for them. So much so that it might also be a weird victory for Labour if we end up with that election delayed until autumn. It's a little bit like back when Starmer first became Labour leader, he said he was preparing the party for a 2023 general election. Why would that be? Because it's normal political wisdom for the government to call the general election 4 years later if they think they're going to win. Because why would you wait for the final year? Because anything could happen. So it was basically Starmer's job to prevent that 2023 election, to force the Tories to go, look, we're not going to win it, let's go long. So if that sounds like an odd victory, it is because the Tories would only have called a general election in 2023 if they thought they had a chance of winning it. And the same applies here. The Tories will call the election in May, not necessarily if they think they can win it. I think they might have abandoned the notion of winning now, but if they think they can at least save themselves a lot of seats. So they'll call the election in May if their plans on balance work out over the next few months. So if the election isn't called for May, it means their plans have gone tits up and they've lost control of the situation. It will mean an extra half a year of the Tories, but could mean a much smaller Tory party when the election does take place. But there we are. That's how 2024 is going to pan out in terms of what's known and what is strongly suspected. Hope you found the video interesting. If you did, please click the like button. And if you'd like to support the channel further, the join button for memberships. And until next time, I'll see you later.